Hey, this is Tiger. Welcome to my stream. AJ, thank you for your good evening. I hope you're having a great evening. And welcome everybody to our unboxing stream for the Northeast Corridor Metro North. You can see where we are. We are at New York. See the radar. Let's learn Charleston. Let's learn Charleston, yes. There was a time in my life when I spent a lot of time at not Charleston parties, but electro swing parties. So I can tell you a bit about dancing Charleston. But I'm afraid I don't have a presentation for that prepared. Yeah, why this? This is one of the collectibles that you encounter in the new DLC that has been released lately. A couple of days ago. There are so many releases this month that I actually can't keep up. Akura, moin to you. Nice to see you. I hope you're having a great evening. I actually hoped that I could do a sneak peek for each and every one of them, but this just does not work with my calendar, especially since we are sometimes we get the release date and the embargo dates really with a really short notice, so it is hard to do. Nevertheless, let's do an unboxing stream then. You can see one of the M8 trains sitting over there with the red decals and the stainless steel body. I'm roaming about at Grand Central Terminal, and Spectre, hey party people, nice to see you on the chat too. So it won't be about so much dancing tonight, it will be about train driving for a change. And before we get to train driving, I just want to walk around a bit in this really nicely modeled Grand Central Terminal, famous for being the biggest railway station in the world. If I'm not mixing up things. On 2 levels we have platforms, and from the numbers of the platforms we can see that we are spawned on the lower level, where you have the 1 in front of it, the 100 numbers. Those are the lower levels, lower level platforms, and there are quite a few of them, right? We can just make our way around them. And there is a lot of ground that we can actually walk on. One nickel that I have with the game as such with the DLC is that we sometimes have some weird lighting issues. Like here, the only thing that you cannot see because it is not reflecting the light is the sign. The wall is reflecting like crazy and the sign is almost dark. And there are some other weird things with the lighting. So this could have done better, but the station as such is really impressive in my opinion. Can make the round on the lower level in case you get lost. It is not necessarily because you can't find your way about, but because it is really a huge station that is represented here. Let's run up on this side of the platforms. Look like an anomaly game. Well, it reminded me of playing Killing Floor or something like this. Here we are on the corridor that connects them on a lower level. And here you can see how many those are. 101 through to underpass in the underpass, yeah, and here we can get to 116 and 117, so there are 17 platforms. But how do we actually get, and Yeah, we can see that there is a way to get past those platforms on this level, on the lower level. How do we actually get to the other levels? Especially the level, this is where we started. This is our Statue of Liberty here. Well, if you don't know it, you can just do what you would do in a normal station. You would just follow the signs. And then it will get you there. So, stair access to platforms 11 and 12. No. Stair access to 9 and 10. Maybe we find a sign that will take us to the lifts, to the upper level and platform. This way to platforms 101 to 2, and here finally follow for elevators to upper level and platforms. You can see one of the M7A trains that come from the Harlem line that obviously starts in this, it's hard to say station because it's they always are very insistent that this is not a station but a terminal, Grand Central Terminal. There used to be a Grand Central Station, but this is Grand Central Terminal. Why this texture is so low res, I don't know. This is one of the points where you have to be sure that players will get close to the texture, and it is a weak one. But that, again, really looks like a railway station. The shadows are a bit scary, aren't they? Yeah, you monsters. Nice dungeon, but where are the monsters? Here they come, the monsters. Spawning out of those M8 trains. Kawasaki trains. And with all those shadows, it can look a bit spooky. Yeah, those are the tracks without the one at front, and you can see 33, the numbering. And you can even use the stairs here to get to the tracks 39 to 42. And are those weirder ones, not really accessible, but here you can get to those stainless steel trains. Again, M7As for the New York Metro North Railroad. Where are we here? We are here on this batch of platforms. Before that we walked around this batch of platforms, and you can see this is a level where we have this possibility to circle around underground and turn around the train if we want to do that. So the terminal as such is a huge plus. Fun just running around here, even though there is nobody to slay. Now they caught us. Okay, at least they are avoiding us and enter the walls instead. But here again, sometimes this lighting is just weird. Camera sticks out like a sore thumb, and there is no light at the wall behind it. For the rest we can just go around here. Here's a route map. You can see what you get in this route. Grand Central Terminal, that's where we are. Here you can start the New York, the Metro North services. The blue line will be the Harlem line. That is a different DLC. We branch off to the right here on the red line towards New Rochelle, and then we meet with the northeast corridor that is coming from Washington, Trenton, Penn Station. Here is all the stuff with the Morristown line on this end. On this end there is also the Long Island Railroad DLC that is connecting there, going to the right more or less at Herald Junction. And then in the DLC here we can go on the Amtrak line towards New Rochelle, and then both. Then we are on Metro North territory, so this part of the northeast corridor is actually right of way of Metro North. So we will get Metro North signaling. So for the Amtrak trains going through here, you can actually see a lot of different signaling, because you start with the Penn Station signals, the Y-shaped signals. Then you have a little stretch where you get the Long Island Railroad, formerly Pennsylvania Railroad, position light signals. Then you have a bit of Amtrak colorized position light signals, and then finally you get the cab signaling for Metro North, where you have only the flashing greens that refer you to your cab signal aspect. And Acura says, I thought it's Paddington Station where people walk through the wall. It's King's Cross, isn't it, where they walk through the wall? Depends on who you follow. And 100 plus 1 signaling is like the Elizabeth line, says CD Raider. Yeah, cool. Let's check out what you get for your money. I actually was looking forward a lot to this route. And jury is still out how much disappointed I am, because the lighting issues are sometimes a bit weird, and the M8 has still, in my opinion, a problem with the safety systems and the emergency brake or the penalty brake that you get if you miss the ACSES limits. According to my knowledge, also the ACSES penalty brake should release automatically as soon as you actually drop below the speed limit, but here, from what I've seen, the M8 stops you until you stand, and that is a bit annoying, especially since you cannot turn off the safety systems. But we will get to this when we drive the trains. Yeah. I have not been able to play a lot because the DLCs are raining down on us. I would like to look closer at Stada Parker. I would like to look closer at the Expert 145. I would have liked to present you Wonders of Sodor, but I did not really get around to doing it. And yeah, I would like to investigate more here on this route, and then we get the 90 tomorrow, the class 90 as it seems, and then later in the course of the week we should get the Medway Valley line, so 2 new DLCs for the UK stuff people. This means I will probably have an unboxing stream for the Class 90 on Tuesday and a sneak peek stream for the Medway Valley on Wednesday. So mark this in your calendar if you are so inclined. And Acura King's Cross to 934, you're right. Maybe Penn is US King's Cross. Maybe you can actually pass through the wall from the Grand Central Terminal to Penn Station, because there is no direct railway connection. And we won't even make it all, and then there will be Transcend 7. Fast enough, yeah. But hopefully there will be an office meetup so that I actually be up to date when we get this. So, Northeast Corridor, Metro North, New York to Stamford. This is what it is called. Metro North, because this is the railway carrier who actually owns most of it. And there is a railway journey, obviously, with 34 items, where you learn to drive the M8. And then you have M8 services that run on the part of the Harlem line before they go over to New Rochelle, and also those here. And then you can drive some services with the American City Sprinter, the American Vectron locomotives, and then there is a chapter about freight. We have not talked about freight, but there is some freight activity going on, especially on or crossing the path where the Amtrak trains go, not on the Metro North line, but underneath. And see, I mean, the underground in New York is so fascinating that I wouldn't even wonder where we would get through a random wall. That is also true. Underground lines and tunnels in big cities are something extremely mystical and mesmerizing. So, what do we get in terms of scenarios? We get 5 scenarios. One of them is a bit special because you actually run against a timer. Well, I have not tried so far. You have to finish your shift before you are hit by the 12-hour limit and cannot continue working. And in the timetable as such, you have the M8, what is the train that is specific for this route here, 309 services. Some of them shunting services, some dead-headed trains, or deadhead trains. That means empty coach moves. And express trains, stoppers, typically between the Grand Central Terminal and Stamford. And some also towards this Yankee Station extension that was already in the Harlem line. Yes, and from the Harlem line we also get the M3A and the M7A. One of the trains was actually part of the Harlem line DLC. The other one is a local DLC, if I remember correctly. Yeah, those 2 trains, I have not tried them if they have been actually modified for it, but they are the ones that are layering in from the Harlem lines, so I guess those trains always had a bit of the problem that they are just accelerating and braking like a bumper car, a bit too good actually to be true. What else do we get? We get the Acela in 21 services from Boston. That is the Acela local DLC, and those don't run Grand Central, but they run between Stamford and Penn Station, what is the Northeast Corridor part. Same goes for the American City Sprinter, the ACS 64. Here we have different versions. We have the one from Boston Sprinter, we have the one from New York Trenton, and then we actually get a new version of it with this DLC. There is a Stamford ACS 64. I have not checked out if it is in any way different from the others, but it needs to be noted that this locomotive is actually in some way re-released or lives in this DLC, so you don't need to own the other DLCs, New York Trenton or the Boston Sprinter DLC, to get this loco if you buy this DLC here. By the way, let me turn on my DLC marker. We are in Northeast Corridor, Metro North, and I got, as always, as an ambassador, my game keys for free from DTG. What else is there? If we have the ACS 64, then we also have the multi-level commuter cab car. That is the cab car that works together with the no, that's not true. That is the cab car that works together with the ALP46. Normally, coming from Morristown and also from New York Trenton. And I did not check it out, but this is typically what comes with them. The ACS 64 has those single level coach cab cars that we had in some DLC already, but I don't think that there are services where you can run the cab car for the ACS 64 in this DLC, but I did not check it out. This cab car, most probably together with the ALP46, you can run here. 22 services, not so super many, but enough. And then the SD40-2 also comes with the DLC. You might have seen this logo before, especially since when you started playing Sandpatch Grade like I did. So the SD40-2 is a main stock and will not surprise you in terms of handling and what it feels like or what it sounds like. And in CSX livery, as you can see, the blue and yellow. And they are doing the freight stuff. It says 0 services, but there are actually a couple of them. Longer ones, as you can see, 146. Always a bit weird, switching customers along the way. Yeah. I have not tried it out. I want to look into this. What stuff of in the freight department here actually works. We have on the route some. Did I cover all the trains? I think so. What I did not do so far is to look at the layers. Typically, at least Spectre is interested in that. Let's look at the layers. What we are getting in those Metro North M8, Grand Central, Amtrak, Acela, M7A, Static, M8, Stamford, Bridgeport, M7, M8, Ballast Hoppers, tank cars, so the freight DLCs, Train to the Game, that is typically to the Yankee Station extension, then Long Island Railroad M3 come in as AI trains, as you can see. So not only the M3A for the Metro North Railway, but also the LIRR is sending the M3 trains. Most probably then at Penn Station, where you can see them, or at Harold's Crossing Junction. CSX SD40-2 trash. All right. Oak Point Yard. We have different freight cars, especially P&W Stone trains, Spaceport Specials, Amtrak Work Train from the Horseshoe Curve. Interestingly enough, it's layering in. Wonder what that is actually. And that's it. So a lot from Harlem Line obviously is coming in. SD40 trash, right? That is harsh. That's what I think. SD40-2 trash. Anyway. Well, that's the levels. Those layers look nice as expected. Strangely, I recently played New York Trenton again, and there were no freight layers at all, despite ZSK and other stuff being installed. Yeah, weird. That was an old thing. I think that with New York Trenton they had problems with the magnitude of their timetable, so they were reluctant to add freight stuff. And see the radar man trains in World 2. Those were the days. Those were the days, right? That was when we all had still our ingenuity and played just for the fun of it. Okay. If we try to spawn on foot, we can have a look at the The route layout, so this is where we just spawned and ran around Grand Central Terminal. This is the Penn station. So there is no direct connection railway-wise from one to the other. This is actually a terminal station. That means the tracks don't go on after the station. This is why it's a terminus, a terminal. And this is the northeastern corridor. We are passing Sunnyside Yard, which is, I think, the busiest railroad junction, at least in the United States, if not in the world. And then you are passing Harrods Crossing and go around here. Those are Oak Point Yard and Harlem River Transfer, where the freight services are coming in. A distribution warehouse, also freight services. Hunts Point. I did not check out what happens there actually. This is where we have to look at the freight trains, and then it goes on here. On the eastern side, until the two lines merge at New Rochelle, because this is the line coming from the Grand Central Terminal, and then Harlem 125th Street, after running straight Central Park here to the left. And this is the extension to Yankees East. Actually, the line goes on. We only have this bit for the Yankees Stadium. And then the stations here on the way, where we are driving in this trench, more or less, and then going out towards White Plains. And here we are branching over via Pelham, where we meet at New Rochelle. Larchmont, Marvel siding, it's probably something for the freight services too. Harrison, but I don't actually know. This is... I have not passed it yet, but I actually only ran 2 services on the route so far. Rochester, Greenwich, Coscob, Riverside, Old Greenwich, and then Stamford, and there is a yard to go with Stamford, and then our journey goes on, passing Connecticut and getting to Rhode Island, Providence, and then to Massachusetts, ending in Boston. On the south side here, we would go through the Morristown part and New York-Trenton part. New York-Trenton part more to Trenton, and finally to Washington, D.C. So the northeast corridor connecting Washington, D.C. and Boston. We are in the middle somewhere here. So that's about the DLC, and now let's play a random service where we just run into... or maybe out of Grand Central. That should be good. Let's not be too complicated. The random services sometimes tell you more about the quality of the route than the selected ones. And you see whether it works. Safety systems, that is ATC, the cab signaling system, and ACSES, what we have discussed in Boston, or we have discussed on the Morristown line for the ACES installation of New Jersey Transit. Quite close. ACSES for line speeds, mostly, and ATC for signal speed. And here we are in our M8. To start up the M8, we turn the master key, the screens light up, we set the reverser to forward, And then we typically have to set it from emergency to max brake so that the brake pipe can fill. You can see it here, you can see it on the white hand here. And then you can unlock. If you don't want to do it with your keyboard shorts, there is a console where you can open and close the doors from the front. It looks nice. We still have to adjust our lighting. Dim headlights. Let's see if we have some red lights at the end. Yeah, that looks good. And we don't have to switch on the safety systems. No. This is for the parking brake. If you want to apply it or release it at some time. But from what I understand, licensing reasons, we don't have safety system switches. We will start here. Oops, that looks weird. That we are still on a 90 limit. We are more or less in a 15 or even 10 limit. I don't know. We're getting controlled by the R, the restrictive signal. You get the signal speed, you get the track speed. The lower one, obviously, you have to adhere to. We got a buzzer from a guard telling us everything is good, we can go. We don't have, actually I can't really see, well, so far we don't have a signal. It's probably that one that is for us. We also in a restricted cab signal at the moment. We have this very specific cab signaling for the north.
This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Harlem 125th Street.
This train here is blocking our path, as it seems. We have this very unique cab signaling for Metro North. We only get normal, limited, medium and restricted. Typically the other frequencies are not used in our postcode cab signaling. That means maximum authorized speed. This is why you get the MAS here in this display. Limited will limit you to 45, medium to 30 and restricted or restricting to 15. As always, this does not guarantee that you can go 15. We are outside of access control territory. We don't have any access speed. And here we're sitting and waiting for a signal. There is a green signal at the far end. Is that ours? Nah, does not look like it. No, this is ours. I'm quite sure. But we're still in restricted. Proceed the signal indicate. That means we can go. No. Brakes only release fully if you have the power brake controller in idle. So let's see what our game is telling us. Is it 10 or is it 15? Looks more like 15. In my humble opinion. Slow clear for the start. Or actually they call it terminal clear, I think. Or is not different because it only allows you to proceed with a slow speed here in the tunnels. What makes a lot of sense. It's 10. See? Gotta be careful. Don't rely on the 15 here. This is only the maximum that the ATC system is controlling you to. But the line speed is only 10 here at Grand Central Terminal. Terminal proceed. Maybe they call it terminal proceed, also possible. At any rate, we can't go faster than our 10, and this is why we have the red light on top of the green light. So those red lights are constantly on. And you can have the green one. And you can have a yellow one. And you can have the yellow one flashing. And then you have either terminal proceed or terminal approach or terminal restricting. At any rate, you're always limited to 10. So this driving in the tunnels at those low speeds must be something that can really drive you crazy. I don't know how the drivers do that in real life. Especially if you have to turn around the train in the loop. So, now we're getting a flashing green. That means this is not a terminal signal anymore, but a proper one. And we have access control now, telling us track speed of 10. The indication for the ATC is a bit weird because it is still lighting the R for restricting, but giving us maximum authorized speed as a signal speed. Maybe because the signal speed would actually be higher than the track speed here. But whether this is prototypical, I don't know, I can't tell you. Since Brandon Cactus Juice programmed the signals, I would wager that it is prototypical. Now we switched, now we're getting track speed of 60, and it switched to N for normal speed, still maximum authorized speed. But we have to run the train's length before we can accelerate, because we are still with our... Oh, now we're just left it. We only have a 6-car train, one train set. You can see we can accelerate to 60, and then when we are at the peak here in the tunnel, we have to slow down to 45. See, according to this one, we're at the moment out of the tunnel, but entering the tunnel again. And then, before we hit the peak, we have to slow down. Because here on Metro North axis, we won't get counted down, unlike on the Amtrak. It will just beep and switch to the lower limit. See, beep. And we are at 45. Here's the peak. With those reflectors or lamps you can actually see it quite nicely. We could go a bit faster now, but there will be another 45, so there is not really a lot of sense in it. Still hear the trains on the neighboring tracks. Now we are in this hall. Ended, switch to 60, and now we can speed up a bit. This has been mentioned as looking weird sunlight. Central Park here to the left. We're running parallel to Park Avenue. This thing, this water container, is typically a reminder that we'll run into a speed limit soon.
This station is Harlem 125th Street. As you leave the train, please watch the gap between the train and the platform.
There's a 40 limit here. Actually, a signed one. Not all the speed limits are marked with signs. This one was marked and was even announced. Maybe I should have honked before.
This station is Harlem 125th Street. This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Fordham.
Sort of New York S-Bahn. Well, yeah.
This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Fordham.
This is the train to Stamford. You gotta love that American accent, yes. Stamford. Streets are a bit more busy than on the Harlem line. Now we're getting a limit to 35, I think, when we're getting to the bend there. One that is, for a change, not announced, probably because it is only a little drop from 40 to 35. Harlem Bridge, indicating where we are going, straight ahead. Here with one of the freight lines going underneath at this point. Line speed limit will increase shortly. Here we have a very long M8 train, that was the alerter. Limit went to 40, but probably I slid into the 36 before I activated the brakes again. Yes, I did. Increase to 50. And to 60 in short succession. And here we are at the point where we can branch out to the Yankees. This one. Yankee Stadium. So those light effects in the cab when you're entering a tunnel from broad daylights, they are a bit clunky in my opinion. We are a bit behind our timetable, but we have to blame the signaler for that because they did not let us go for quite some time. Now we can accelerate to 75. Before we have to step at Fordham. At the end of this trench part, we will have to slow down again. Passing this one station here in the trench. Inspector says that is true, since CSR problems persist, not to speak about overhead line equipment glowing in tunnels, and my favorite, the nuclear meltdown in Kere tunnel. What tunnel is that? On the Pfälzische Ludwigsbahn, is that one? Yeah. That one piece, this one segment of tunnel is just crazy. So now we have to prepare for a drop in line speed, I think, as soon as we're going into a bend. Hope you're counting those feet. Fordham.
This station is Fordham. As you leave the train, please watch the gap between the train and the platform.
Here's the drop to 60. And I'm counting those feet, TV radar. So, hear the birds sing. The problem that I have with this master controller when playing with keyboard shorts is that moving it from maximum acceleration to maximum brake just by pressing the D key takes quite some time. So if you get a signal drop while you're just accelerating away from the station, then you really have to be fast to not run into the penalty brake. Just because it takes some time to move the lever. That's easier on the ACS, for example, because there the lever moves faster. Because you have to get through coast, you have to get through minimal. So let's see if we've got another part where we can go 75. I always forget, and then we have a drop to 60 again. When we can see this yard with all the school buses, then we should slow down. This is the yard with the school buses. That was a signal drop to limited. Maximum brakes, and then you should be able to release it. Yeah, that was an ATC. But still, we're not getting it. Now we're getting it, just to not move it into coast. So that was my mistake. Spectrum, is that not still the Harlem line? How much is identical to the new DLC? Pretty much to where we are getting now. This is still the Harlem line, and soon enough we will branch off to the right. And that is not identical with the Harlem line anymore. We already got the signals for the branch off. Here we go. Harlem line will go through the middle loop here. And we're going to the right. You can see it here. Here's the branch off. This is the Harlem line. And on the Harlem line you would have Mount Vernon, and we are stopping at Mount Vernon East. A drop? No, we can go 60. Access wise, if we don't get a signal drop, we can accelerate to 60. And brake wise, we should be good up to 2000 feet, about that, with our 60. So, Mount Vernon East. Funny cars they have here. Now we're going.
The next station is Pelham.
Pelham. Now we're going through a power changeover. You might have noticed that we are still running on third rail power. And soon enough we will be getting an overhead catenary, and our train can actually switch from third rail power to overhead catenary to get a bit more juice. And it is really easy to do. We can do this on the fly. We don't need to stop. Now we're getting already our overhead catenary. Game will prompt you though with a message. will it be? And then for New Rochelle, we will have to slow down to 30 eventually. I think it is still proper procedure to at least get the master controller into idle or coast before we do the switch over. We just move it from DC mode to AC mode and then press the pan up, and then we should get a pantograph up. The only thing is, you should brake if you are approaching a station where you should stop and not rely on explaining a pantograph.
This station is Pelham. This is the train to Stamford. The next station is New Rochelle.
And since we are still on, this is one of the collectibles here.
This is the train to Stamford. The next station is New Rochelle.
Only wayside signals that we're getting here on Metro North territory is a flashing green and the double reds. Now we got a signal drop to limited, because we probably have to switch tracks or have to slow down anyway. For New Rochelle, we'll most probably get a drop to M to enforce the 30 limit. A good safe accelerator for the station. Yep, that was just in time. Here is a 30 announced. Mind that if you see the sign with a 30, the limit is not in place yet. Or coming up. And in this case, secured or safeguarded with the ATC. Signal is dropping to 30 before we hit the track speed of 30. And this is the sign where the speed limit actually starts. Here it should drop from 50 to 30. Or so I thought. Or so I thought. It's actually later here in the game. Signaling wise, it should happening where this SR for speed restriction sign sits. Now it dropped. And a seller sitting there. Now we got a restricting. But you might have seen already how long it takes to get the master controller through the coast setting into the maximum brake setting. You got it. You have to get it into the maximum brake to make brake assurance, and then acknowledge it to make it stop and not apply a penalty brake. Let's see how slow we have to go so that the automatic train stop does not stop us prematurely, because that is still a thing. If you have a red signal at the end of the platform and you're rolling there with 15, what you think is okay, all of a sudden the positive train stop stops you short.
This station is
But this apparently was good enough.
This is the train to Stamford. The next station is
Well, we have a green
Larchmont.
signal, so there was no positive train stop anyway. Well, New Rochelle, and we're still going on to Stamford.
This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Larchmont.
Larchmont. Track speed profile will go up to 50 soon, and then to 70, 80 for the spell between New Rochelle and then Stamford. We're not getting to New Haven, unfortunately, but to Stamford at any rate. So, and now we can put the foot down a bit. Stamford is not where the university is it? Stamford, Connecticut. I think there is a famous university at Stamford, but don't quote me on it.
This station is Larchmont. As you leave the train, please watch the gap between the train and the platform.
So the famous Stanford University is in California. Okay. Good thing we did not try to visit our friends then.
station is Larchmont. This is the train to Stamford. The next... This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Mamaroneck.
Mamaroneck. At least we cannot confuse Mamaroneck with some famous university in California. Yeah, you can see at this speed the train is already almost losing its ability to accelerate even further.
This station is Mamaroneck. As you leave the train, please watch the gap between the train and the platform.
It's spooky to stop the train if you don't see a speedometer. But 240 points anyway. Before we get to Harrison, we will see a drop in line speed from 80 to 70, I'm quite sure. I don't know if it makes sense at this point. We can just check if we can release our ACSES penalty brake if this happens. depends on... Yeah. Now we're still accelerating full. Now we're not getting even a penalty brake because we were only 2 clicks above. So there is no intervention.
This station is Harrison. As you leave the train, please watch the gap between the train and the platform.
Harrison. Don't stall on me, train.
This station is Harrison. This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Rye.
Rye. Yes. Line is quite busy. You can see where the over 200 services for the M8 trains are coming from. Now we're getting drops here to 50 before we get to Rye, actually. It's possible that this will be accompanied by a signal drop.
This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Rye.
So, Acela is overtaking us. Well, if you have the layers full, you get a lot of trains on this route, so much is for sure. So the drop to 50 is soonish. I wonder if it will be signaled, the drop to 50. Probably we can again do checking out of the ACSES penalty brake. Let's just play dumb. So, let's see if it releases if we are underneath the 50. And this is the problem, what I mean, it does not release. We are still in overspeed condition and it does not release our penalty brake. Don't know if I'm doing anything wrong, but it stops us to standstill and then it releases, and not before that. And I think this was mentioned as a bug before. And it is still in the train. It does not happen with signal drops with the ATC penalty brake. That one releases properly, but the ACSES penalty brake seems to stop you to a standstill. back to 70, but this does not make a lot of sense for us. Especially since the line speed is prone to drop to 60 soonish anyway. And we have to stop.
This station is Rye. As you leave the train, please watch the gap between the train and the platform. This station is Rye. This is the train to...
Rye. Well, those platforms are long at any rate. Long enough for a double set of those trains here.
This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Port Chester.
Port Chester. $60, $70, and then we stop. What are you saying, City Radar? Poster?
This station is Port Chester. As you leave the train, please watch the gap between the train and the platform.
Like Leicester. Yeah, you're Poster. Got a signal drop to limit it, but this does not really phase us a lot.
This station is Port Chester. This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Greenwich.
The way he says it sounds like pork chester, like a beef choker. Sometimes it is doing weird things with the brake pipe.
This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Greenwich.
Greenwich. You will have a drop in... Yeah, this is the 45. This is what we got limited for, and then the 50, and then the 70. Probably because we are switching. Oh, that's the place where 0 time is, yeah, in Greenwich. Greenwich Mean Time. But maybe it's a different Greenwich too. Line speed climbed to 50, but we're still under a limited cap signal. Line speed increased to 70 even, but the limited is still holding us to 4. Now it's changed. Very mean time indeed, yes. There is no time to be mean, actually. Do we stop in 70 at Greenwich? Yes. The drop to 60 will be past Greenwich.
This station is Greenwich. As you leave the train, please watch the gap between the train and the platform. This station is Greenwich. This is the train to Stamford. The next station is Stamford.
Yes, I haven't updated the website in a while. AJ updates it. And sometimes she just cannot be bothered. Especially now that we have to add a new country page. Inspector says this particular route looks decent, but in general the northeast corridor has not been DTG's strength so far. Hate to say it. And see the, oh, I wonder what that could be. Yes. What could he be? Yeah, in my opinion, the saddest bit of news about this route is that it is Brandon Cactus chooses last route for DTG from what you can read on the news. And he did add tremendous quality to the signaling on the Northeast Corridor. Really, why? He does good signaling work, yes. It is not really clear to me. Maybe I know more after the office meetup in August, but there seems to be some irritations, but I don't know anything, just what is on the public Discord. So did you see how long it takes to get a master controller from accelerating into maximum brake here for the signal drop to 45? This is faster on the ACS, also on the F40. Those thingies I gotta show you. There are like 4 or something of those machines here, and I don't know whether it works on this particular one, but on some of them you can actually stand in this bucket here and watch the trains come and go from up here. Never tried it, but they said so in the article. Next level train spotting, yes. Here's a 50 limit on this bridge. So, signal improved. Can accelerate again. Will we have to be prepared for a drop? No, we're passing Old Greenwich, and then only for Stamford, but that will, the signals will take us down, I think. Trees are outdated, modern spotters use heavy machinery. And only 2 miles to Stamford. That should be Old Greenwich here. Looks very old. So that was both ACSES and signal drop. Let's see which system took over since the overspeed released and the brakes are releasing. Most probably the ATC took precedent and we could release it. And the
This station is Stamford. As you leave the train, please watch the gap between the train and the platform.
And the countdown in feet suspected triggers his inner monk. Why not use centimeters or inches? I think Matt said something that the Americans wanted to have the countdown in feet rather than in yards. But I cannot tell you at the moment about which Americans he was actually talking. In this context, I cannot tell you either why there are 4 minutes on the clocks on the clock. And again, it will be interesting whether the positive train stop will stop us. Yes, and I caught up with the Acela. There was only the alerter. Let's see if we get a positive train stop. Or whether we can reach the end of the platform.
This station is...
So do I open left or right? Right, what was it? All right at any rate. The Acela. I always wondered whether to name it Acela or Acela or Acela, but I think it is Acela. That would be the most American way to say it, right? Acela.
Next to arrive on track 2.
If you say it in Italian, it would be more like Acela. In a Slavic language, it would be more like Acela.
Norriton Heights, Darien, Rowayton, South Norwalk, East Norwalk, Westport, Greens Farms, Southport, Fairfield, Fairfield Metro, Bridgeport, Stratford, Milford, West Haven, New Haven, and New Haven State Street.
Does the escalator actually take the camera with it? No. In German it would be Aquila. Yeah. Aquila. At any rate, here he goes. The strange bird on its journey to New Haven. And Providence and Boston. But we have to wait
Next to
until
arrive
our
on track
timer has.
5 is the 8:52 a.m. train to Grand Central Terminal, making stops at Harlem 125th and Grand Central Terminal.
Well, those announcements are nice. Camera cannot enter, yeah. Hey, I try and actually use the horn. Now the station almost completely belongs to the M8. The Kawasaki trains. And finally I can close my doors. Oh, we're actually going to the yard. Then we're going to the yard. Beep beep. We're going to the yard. What is yard limit? Is it 10 or is it 15? First, it is 15, then it is 10. Okay, we're out of the access control territory. We're not getting any cap signals anymore, we're just on restricting the system. ATC is controlling us to 15, even though the limit drops to 10 at some point. Sifa, Zwangsbremsung. No. We're going to the yard. It's quite a big yard, actually. Do we need to pay attention? No, we don't need to pay attention. Then we are going into the Ortsstellbereich. And that's it. 1 hour 13:23. For that one, we don't need to pay attention is a very dangerous sentence from a train cab. Yeah, that is true. But we don't need to pay attention for. The thing is, as soon as you're going into a yard, always make sure that it is not your responsibility to set the switches properly. Otherwise, you might end up in a weird situation and be blamed. So, that was... See, service already goes on to the next one, but we're not playing the next service. That was the first look, what people sometimes say, into the Northeast Corridor, Metro North, New York to Stamford DLC. We ran from Grand Central Terminal here, the Harlem line, more or less, until we branched off towards New Rochelle here, and then did the track to Stamford. And what we did not play, and is also in the DLC, is this huge stuff here with Penn Station, with the East River tunnels, and then the whole Sunnyvale Yard and Harold's Crossing, where we have the Long Island Railroad signals, and then the Northeast Corridor part where the Amtrak trains go until they pass all the freight nodes here, until they reconnect here with the line that we ran on and get to New Rochelle. Student engineer, New Rochelle, this is what I wanted to highlight. And then go on the same tracks until they get to Stamford. And from here, it would go on and on and on to Providence and Boston and New Haven before we get to Providence. Yeah, whereas this connects through the Hudson tunnels to Kearney Junction, to the Morristown line. Yeah. Secaucus Station, Newark, on the Newark Trenton line, and goes on through New Jersey, Delaware, until we get to Washington, D.C. Switch 601. What was switch 601? Yeah. Guys, I hope you enjoyed my interpretation of the unboxing of this DLC. I'm a bit miffed that this ACSES penalty break still gets you to a standstill. In case I'm doing anything wrong here, please let me know. Apart from that and the lightning issues at some point, it is a really nice DLC with a lot of traffic happening, with beautiful trains in an obviously beautiful part of the world. And we will see that again as soon as I get around to making some videos that focus on signaling and other topics, and not more or less jumping from one unboxing and sneak peek video to the next. And that gets us to the point where I announced that I will be doing some unboxing and sneak peek videos next week. According to my plans, on Tuesday we will have a look at the Class 90. That is to be released tomorrow. And on Wednesday it should be a sneak peek for the Medway Valley line. That is the lines that connecting to Strud, what we know from the Southeastern High Speed. We get two new versions of the Electrostar 375, the Stroke 3 and the Stroke 6 versions, with a pimped up GMSR radio, as it seems, and we will have a look at that on Wednesday. for tonight. Spectres, thanks for the stream. See you guys. I hope you liked the American stuff, the Northeast Corridor, and maybe Brendan Cactus Juice reconsiders and they find a way how he can keep up the good work. I don't know what happened there and what is the problem, but I can't see anyone else doing the American signaling the way that he did it. Thanks guys, see you around, have the greatest of times, bye bye.